Hello there, I'm Hannah, a teaching artist at the De Young. This week I want to share with you the story of Ruth Asawa, a California artist who lived and worked in San Francisco. Maybe you've heard of her, or maybe you've seen some of her sculptures. I'm very inspired by her art and her life story. When she was younger, she and her family, along with thousands of other Japanese Americans, faced great injustice, and it was during those difficult times that she used her art practice to sustain her and give her purpose. Let's read more about her from this book, Ruth Asawa, A Sculpting Life. It's written by Joan Schoettler and illustrated by Tracy Van Wagener. Aiko Asawa runs between rows of tomatoes and peppers on her parents' Southern California farm. She stops to look at a dragonfly and the colours and patterns of its see-through wings. She studies spider webs and dangling fruit. Her toes touch the ground as her legs dangle over the edge of a horse-drawn leveller. She uses her toes to draw and delights in making wavy lines and hourglass shapes. At home, Aiko speaks Japanese and is called by her Japanese name. At school, she is known as Ruth, her American name, and signs Ruth on her polar bear picture. She is proud when it is put up for display. Her third grade teacher encourages Ruth's artistic talent. Ruth wins a school competition for her drawing of the Statue of Liberty, representing what it means to be an American. On Saturdays, Ruth attends Japanese school with other Japanese American children. Empty space is as important as strokes, her calligraphy teacher tells her. She paints black ink on white paper with single strokes. She studies lines, curves, and spaces around her. Ruth works with her parents on their farm. She coils string on bean poles, weaving designs with knots. She loves to daydream and work by herself. During World War II, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. Japanese Americans on the West Coast are rounded up and sent to prison-like camps. Ruth's father is forced to leave the farm. A short time later, Ruth carries her own small suitcase and boards a bus with her mother, brothers, and sisters. For 6 months, they live in a horse stall at a former racetrack. Ruth takes classes from Japanese artists who teach her to look closely at life. Again, Ruth and her family are moved far from the coast. Instead of their farm with green all around, they live in a tar-papered barrack. Ruth studies the lines of people waiting for meals, baths, and mail. She sketches life in the internment camp and pictures of her friends. In art class, Ruth paints on scraps of denim. She hammers holes into tin cans, turning them into metal art. Small rocks, decorated with her tiny sketches, fit into her hand. Ruth treasures her free time to draw and paint. After 12 months, Ruth receives a scholarship and leaves the camp to become a teacher. Milwaukee State Teachers College trains her to be a teacher, But when Ruth is close to finishing her degree, she realizes her Japanese ancestry will make it hard for her to be hired. She leaves without a diploma. She travels to Black Mountain College in North Carolina to study art in studios with famous artists and thinkers. Here, Ruth observes nature and develops a love of learning and of educating the whole person. Ruth works to make money and travels with her sister to Mexico. In markets, she sees hanging looped wire baskets. A Mexican man teaches her to loop with wire. Ruth experiments using lines, curves, and spaces, and makes looped wire art from a practical technique she learned in Mexico. She twists thin, flexible wire. With loop after loop, Ruth builds sculptures of wire and air. It's like a drawing in space, she says. Ruth meets Al Lanier, an architect. They move to San Francisco and marry. 6 children fill their lives. She works late at night and early in the morning. Ruth weaves her love of family and art together. When she works on her looped wire pieces, her children play nearby. Ruth's hands coil brass, copper, and iron wires into hanging sculptures. Her children help her twist the wires around wooden dowels or rods to form coils. Using a simple chain stitch of loop after loop, Ruth coils metal into new shapes. She tapes her sore fingers to protect them. They are her tools. Sometimes Ruth loops from the top down, and other days from the bottom up. On occasion, she works inside her piece, creating lines, curves, and spaces. Ruth suspends wire sculptures from ceilings. Smaller forms hang within larger ones. She designs for light shining through her art, casting shadows on walls. In museums and art galleries, people walk beneath the hanging sculptures, marveling at Ruth's looped wire structures. They peer through her art, studying the wires and the gaps between them. Look at the space that we don't touch, Ruth says. People from far away places buy Ruth's wire sculptures and display her work. Her creations are like no other artist's. Some early reviews of Ruth's work call it women's craft work or Japanese influenced. Ruth ignores these reviews. She continues looping and dividing, thinking about the empty spaces within her creations. Ruth receives many art awards and honorary degrees. Ruth experiments with new art forms. She twists industrial wires together, tying them into bundles like trunks and branches. When her children start school, Ruth remembers how important her art education had been. Art will make people better, says Ruth. To weave art into children's lives, she co-founds the Alvarado School Arts Workshop, where she teaches, inviting artists, musicians, and gardeners to join her. Ruth helped start the Ruth Asawa San Francisco School of the Arts. Andrea, the fountain in Ghirardelli Square, is Ruth's first public commission. Because it is close to the bay and she wants to appeal to children, Ruth sculpts 2 mermaids and a merbaby. Large frogs and playful turtles swim and sun themselves. Ruth invites the community to help create her large projects. Rolling, twisting and sculpting baker's clay, school children fashion self-portraits, buildings and local landmarks. Ruth has their pieces cast into bronze to create the San Francisco fountain. She folds large sheets of paper to design structures for public fountains, and later the models are cast in steel. Ruth becomes known as the Fountain Lady of San Francisco. In her final public commission, The Garden of Remembrance at San Francisco State University, Ruth honors Japanese Americans sent to internment camps. 10 boulders symbolize the 10 internment camps. A cleansing waterfall washes over the rocks, representing internees returning to the coastline after the war. At the DeYoung Museum in San Francisco, Ruth gazes at lines, curves and spaces and her wire sculptures. Ruth remembers daydreaming on the farm, learning to draw and looking closely at nature. She recalls making hourglass shapes in the dirt with her feet as a child. Contented, she rubs her hands, made rough from bending wire, folding paper, and working with clay. Ruth Asawa described how working with wire was like drawing in space. I wonder if you're curious about trying that yourself. I've made a short video sharing some wire bending and sculpting techniques you could try at home. I hope you have a chance to check it out. Thanks for joining me.